What's happening, fishing friends? Let me ask you a question. Have you ever been fishing at a spot and had that internal dilemma, should I keep fishing here or is it time to pack up and try a new spot? Or how about trying to dial in a pattern, whether it's trying to find fish in a specific spot on the lake or trying to dial in a specific lure, what you're going to catch more fish on. It can be hard to do. Well, those are the topics we're going to discuss in today's Let's Talk MLF. Now, some of you might have seen this video go up yesterday, and I apologize for that. That's because I thought there was an app where you could watch all of the MLF episodes for free. There is an app, it's free to download, it's My Outdoors TV. However, when you go into the actual episodes of MLF, you only get to watch like the first 5 minutes and you have to do a paid membership thing. So a big shout out to my man Mel Tolson. He's the one that messaged me and let me know, hey Debo, you actually have to pay after the first 5 minutes. So he's been a subscribed fishing friend for a long time. So I appreciate that, Mel. Thank you for letting me know. But the good part about my Let's Talk MLF videos is that you don't actually have to watch the show to understand what's going on. I'm going to recap a lot of it, but I'm applying it to you all out there, whether you're fishing a lake or a pond. The techniques and things that they did in the show, I'm applying that to things that I use and you all use to hopefully help you when you go out. I really do think MLF is great for the sport of tournament bass fishing. It puts a complete whole different spin on the sport. There's a timer. It's a bunch of guys that have no prior knowledge of the lake. That day, maybe a couple years ago they fished it, but that day in that moment, that lake could fish completely different. So it's completely instinctual. They've got to go based on their gut and they just got to go out and fish. Under time limits, completely different than, thinking you've got all day to find the fish out and find 5 fish. Now, don't get me wrong. I love the BASS and the FLW Series 2. I watch those. I'm a fan of all of it. I love bass fishing, but I think MLF brought a whole new spin to it that people hadn't seen. For example, my old lady. My old lady likes to actually sit down and watch fishing with me. She says, honey, you want to watch some MLF? I'm like, what? You want to watch fishing? Heck yeah, I do. So let's move on to what I found very interesting from watching the 2 elimination rounds and the championship round of the Summit Cup. Now, again, if you haven't watched these episodes, my Let's Talk MLF, there will be spoilers. So if you haven't watched those yet, turn away now, go watch those and come back here because I will discuss spoilers. Alrighty, so sudden death round 1 for the Summit Cup. Brent Ayler won it. Now, of course, Brent's plan was to start out deep with the drop shot. He's an amazing drop shot fisherman. Started out deep, but that bite went stagnant. He was watching the wind started to pick up, and he had a very good looking wind-blown bank. He listened to his gut, he decided to move up shallow and toss the jerkbait. So something inside him told him it was time to move. He wasn't getting the bites that he wanted, he was fishing off of instinct. And I think that's what makes this so cool. You get to watch those guys figure it out. You can see the wheels turning, they're trying to make that decision. Do I make a couple more casts? Do I leave? What do I do? There's a clock going. Somebody just caught 5 fish. I'm freaking out. And that's something that I struggle with a lot when I started the sport of bass fishing. You get caught up in the moment and say, oh, just a couple more casts here. I bet I can get one more bite. A couple more casts turns into an hour and you've just blown an hour and not had another bite. Or you pull up to a spot over here and you're like, this looks so fishy. This looks so good. There's no way there can't be a fish on it. And you burn 2 hours because it looks fishy. Or you come over here to a lake that you've already fished before. You pull up onto the point that you killed them on last time. You get up there and you fished it for an hour and a half and not a single fish. And you're like, what gives? Last time I was here, there was tons of fish. There has to be fish here. Well, that's the tough part. I can't give all of you a specific time. Spend X amount of minutes here. If you don't get a bite, move on. I can't give you that time. It could be 10 minutes. It could be 40 minutes. Just depends. Sometimes it's honestly as easy as changing a presentation. The spot you might be in, you fished it for 45 minutes topwater, you don't get a bite. It's probably time to move or switch up. Maybe you start throwing, a shaky head or a weightless stick bait. Boom, you start catching fish. You've got to listen to your gut and, get that experience in. That's why I say the most important thing for new anglers is putting time in on the water, period. You all know I love to frog fish. If you're new to the channel, I'm Debo. I love to frog fish. It's easy for me to burn a whole morning fishing a frog, 2 hours without a bite. I don't want to put the frog down. I love it. That topwater explosion, like somebody took their grandpa's old bowling ball and threw it in the water, that gets me pumped. And I don't want to stop fishing that because there's a chance that I might get another one of those. But I finally get to that point where I'm like, okay, I've got to switch. And it can be, a couple casts later and I'm already catching fish on a swim jig or a shaky head, whatever it is. You've got to switch up. So you're only going to get that sort of experience and that gut feeling when it's time to move by putting experience in on the water. So anyway, going back to Brent, I'm off on this wild tangent. Brent listened to his gut and started fishing up shallow. As soon as he got up to that shallow riprap and started throwing that jerkbait, he started getting bit. And what was really cool about it is he was using a 2-prong approach. Of course, just the regular jerkbait, pop, pop, pause, pop, or whatever cadence he was doing. He was using that and catching fish, but also he was using that jerkbait to find fish. He was having fish come out from behind cover and fish completely followed all the way up to the boat. And when that was happening, he was putting that rod down as quick as he could, grabbing his drop shot, pitching it in front of that fish, and catching all of them. It was awesome. I find that extremely interesting because I've never heard of anybody using a jerkbait like that, to draw out fish, but it makes sense. Really, any sort of search bait, you can do that and then follow up. Of course, time is of the essence. If you, get that fish to come up and you fart around for 10 minutes before you're getting your rig, done up and throw it out there, I didn't catch him. Follow-ups don't work. Time is of the essence. As soon as he saw that fish starting to swim off, he was with that drop shot, pitching it in front of that fish and getting him. All right, so sudden death round 2, Mr. Gary Klein won it again, and that's awesome. Remember, this is the same Gary Klein that hadn't won a single round in, I think, like 8 seasons of MLF. Hadn't won one of them. He's one of the founders of it. Now he's won 2 in a row, his elimination round and the sudden death round. His strategy was pretty simple. He had it dialed in. He was using a little 4-inch General. This isn't a Berkley General, but he was using a Berkley General stick bait just like this with a little 1/16 ounce weighted wacky head. And what that does when you put that little wacky head on here, as this bait's shimmying down, instead of being weightless and just barely going, it accentuates that movement and really puts movement on the end of those stick bait there and drags it down. You can cover a little bit water quicker with that too. He was using this exact rig and fishing boat docks, boats that were tied up off the shore, little swim jump things. I guess swim platforms would probably be the technical term. Anything that was giving those fish shade that they could hide under. Now what's crazy about that is Mike Iaconelli was using a very similar tactic, except he had his pattern dialed into a pattern within a pattern. What the heck's that mean? A pattern within a pattern? Well, the way Mike explained it was, instead of going out and fishing every dock, the way he started, he was only getting bit on certain ones. Any sort of dock that was plain, nothing on it, he wasn't getting bit. Every time he pulled up to a dock with a big boat on it or a big pontoon boat and pitched up right up under that, he was getting bit on every single one of those. Now, what was so crazy about Gary Klein and winning that sudden death round? Well, remember, the MLF events are split into 3 periods. In that first period, Mike only needed 3 ounces, not 3 pounds, 3 ounces, 1 scoreable bass to go out in the first period. He couldn't do it. He had a bunch of time left. Gary Klein had, I think, like 14 or 15 pounds left. And then that second period, Gary Klein ended up passing him, catching 15 pounds before Mike could catch 1 scoreable bass. Well, come to find out in the press conference, Mike had actually run out of the exact same rig, a green pumpkin Berkley General. He ran out of the green pumpkin. He had to switch off to something else, and I didn't know it while I was watching him, but he talked about being completely spun out. He's like, I'm so out of my game right now, I don't even know what I'm doing. He was trying to pitch up under docks. He was banging off the post. He was completely spun out. He was out of his element. Forgot where he was going with all of it. He had to switch up, the tactic that he had a bunch of confidence in, switch up to a different color. He wasn't getting the bites, just got spun out. So it was crazy. It wasn't just any, wacky rig stick bait that it was getting bit. Once he switched off and lost that green pumpkin, he wasn't getting the bites like he was before. So it just shows that you might be on a wacky rig stick bait pattern, but if you can dial it into the exact color that's getting bit more, you found a pattern within a pattern. Of course, Ike is one of the absolute best bass anglers in the world. He carried that pattern within a pattern tactic over into the championship round and won it. He said he was doing the exact same thing. He was fishing docks, but the docks that didn't have anything on it wasn't getting bit. The ones with the big pontoons or the big boats, he was getting all kinds of bites. He said he did switch it up a little bit there. I think 90% of the fish that he caught were on one of those little Mike missile jigs, the little Ike mini jig, a 1/2 ounce, just a little tiny thing. I think he had a Berkley chigger craw on there, probably green pumpkin, I'm guessing. He said he dyed the little, the pinchers and a little bit of chartreuse. He noticed when he was coming up to these, docks and platforms that there was a bunch of bluegill and little perch on it. And of course, that chartreuse mimics those bait fish. So as an everyday angler like myself, I'm not a tournament fisherman, or, most of you out there probably are watching are not tournament fishermen. What's it mean to an everyday angler like me, a pattern within a pattern? Well, when you go to your local lake or your local pond and you catch a fish, pay attention to how you caught it, where you caught it, what it was around. You catch a fish by, some cattails. You don't just say, well, I'm going to fish all the cattails around. All of them are going to be holding fish. What was different about that spot? Was it, a spot of a cattail where it stuck way out, a point on the cattails? Or was it just a little clump of cattails with nothing else around it, a little isolated patch of cattails? Maybe it was the cattails that were bumped right up next to rocks. If there was rock by, you were getting bit. If it was just, random cattails out in the open, you're not getting bites. Once you start listening to those and looking at the, the specifics of where you're getting a bite, you can dial that pattern within a pattern, not just cattails, but that specific spot on cattails. And you don't have to overcomplicate things. A lot of people are listening like, oh, I'm struggling just to get a fish. I can't put patterns within patterns, and I'm not a tournament angler. It sounds like a lot at first, but a lot of it is just going to come with time on the water. And I'm no pro. I'm still not very good at doing this a lot of the times. You get caught up in the moment. You're excited to get out and fish. But just try to pay a little bit more attention and you'll be surprised what things start clicking. You know, I caught it on this big, huge lay down tree. Well, then you start noticing more lay down trees. You start getting more bites. Put that together, couple that with time on the water, and I guarantee you'll find more fish. So comment below and let me know if these type of commentaries on MLF help. I like watching pro fishing. MLF to me is the most fun to watch. I still watch the BASS when I can. It's kind of hard because that stuff's live and work and all that stuff. They don't like you watching your phone. But comment below and let me know if you think these commentaries are helpful. I like breaking this stuff down. You can always learn something from every sort of source, no matter what it is. Pull information from it and use it. So honestly, a huge thanks to everybody that watches these. I've seen a lot of new names, a lot of new comments down below, you know, new people joining the channel. My channel's done 1 billion times better than I ever thought it could. So honestly, thank you all. But of course, it is late. Until more MLF conversations, I got to get to bed. Until next time.